looking at the new features. It's been out a little while, but always try to get as much as possible also set up on my side so I can show you what it looks like on the Intacct side and what needs to be active. So we'll go through a couple of these, some exciting things in this release, and also some insights into what's coming in the future as well. So that's always great to see. The session is normally recorded, and we'll share that afterwards as well. If there's questions, send them through. We'll try and get to them in session, but obviously we can reach out afterwards as well if we don't get to everything. Just on the agenda today, a couple of things to accelerate that decision making. So we'll talk about that. There's a few enhancements on the RITC process, so the reduced input tax credit. So we'll talk about what that looks like and how it is. Exciting things around our AI components. So one of our agents for the year, or first agents for the year, been released around the closed automation. So we'll spend a little bit of time there just going through what is available, and obviously a few more things coming out or expect to come out later in the year as well. From there, we'll go into purchasing. So around the automation there again, looking at line level approvals, looking at line level matching. So quite a few nice enhancements coming in that's now available. One of the big ones, Intacct Data Cloud. So a few things coming out there just around where the data can be and how it can be housed. So we'll talk around that one when we get to it. And then maximizing your time again. So from automation point of view, what does it look like? Customer payment service, probably a little premature on that one, but very excited, long time coming. Finally got some visibility on what's happening there and what we can expect. There's been a few changes on the Sage fixed assets management side of things. So we'll talk about those, and I'll show you some of the new features. On the GL side, balance sheet reconciliation was always a bonus. So that account recon coming out as well. I'll talk about the AI powered import agent. So we've had that new import service around for a while. There's a few new enhancements come about on that one. So we'll step through what does it look like and what we'll see there. And then just a couple of things from operational side to make life a little bit easier. On most of these, I'll scoot across quite quickly, but manage projects in bulk. That customer billing group, so just enhancing the way we can set up a grouping instead of doing things individually to automate those processes. On the intelligent time, there's a few updates around geofencing, and then in the construction side, Sage Construction, there's a new work order dimension and flexible retainage that's also been released. Okay. With that, we'll jump into the detail around that, get into some insight. So firstly, that RITC, as I mentioned, is now available on the tax detail. Now, what that means, when we originally set this up, it is on a company level. So when we produce or input a AP invoice, for instance, you can always activate that reduced input tax credit if you sort of register for that, and then whenever that posting happens, that calculation will happen. So I'll show you what it looks like essentially, but it's now extended to take it into the tax detail. So still in the company, but on each tax detail level, you can now have different rates associated. Okay. Now, the idea behind that, initially when we looked at entities, or where we set that up from a reduced input side of things, that started on the company side. So if you look at your company, it's this section here at the bottom. We've got reduced input tax that's been enabled. I haven't defaulted a tax account, or that unrecoverable portion. Where does that post to? You can default an account in, so unrecoverable account. If you leave it blank, it goes to the expense. So I'll show you what it looks like, but essentially that's the original setup. So we can have an effective date and our percentage value of what is the amount that we can actually claim back. Now that's the default setting. What has been added now is bringing it on the tax side. If we look at our input tax on the details, you now have got that ability to on each of these individual ones, set up a independent rate per company as well. So again, there's our section, there's the default rate coming in. But for my 600 entity, I've actually changed the value there to say, what, I want to claim back 80%. So it gives you that detailed breakdown, flexibility, bring it in. Now, from a processing point of view, what does it do? if I enter an AP invoice, you can see there I've brought this invoice in. It's just a normal, $1,000 invoice, $100 tax. So that process remains the same. Everything you enter. The flag for RICT is ticked on. Now, essentially what will happen on the posting, that's where the magic happens. It'll, you still have your control account posting. You get your $1,000 expense that we had in there. There's my 80% recoverable going into GST account, and then the 20%, because I didn't put a recoverable account in there, it goes to the expense as well. So you can see where that gets posted out individually. So a nice little feature just to bring that in on a more detailed level to enhance that reporting and allow that streamlining of the RICT reporting essentially. All right. Now, moving on from there, one of the big ones around AI, there's definitely a big drive on things that's there. So we've got a couple of AI options already available. And in this release, they also brought in, Sage AI close automation. Now, that's one of our first agents that they've released this year, and there's a few more coming. So, it's an exciting time, obviously, and what we can do. Now, in this instance, we've got a few things already available: variance analysis, close assistant, and the sub-ledger account sub-ledger reconciliation assistant. And then in our workspace itself, we've got those checklist notifications and then also collaboration. So a few tools that they've enhanced in this area that can be utilized. So we'll drill down into some of these just to give you a bit of an overview of what each of them can physically do. So essentially in the native Intacct, we had the checklist at the end of the month. You can run through those checklists, set up tasks, what we need to do. In the new one, they've actually enhanced it a little bit. So you can actually have those template-based workflows to establish what those procedures should look like. So we can create those tasks, get the checklist in, and for every task, there's an owner and a status available. And using these, you can see where we are. So still have our normal task, what it is, who's responsible, the start and end dates, and then you've got those indications of where we are. So that's the first sort of enhancement there, bringing in some visibility around where we are with the tasks, giving you insights into what it is. So there'll be proactive notifications as well. You've run over the task schedule due date, what needs to happen. So those things will come through and be surfaced quite easily. Looking at the close progress monitor, essentially, again, taking you through the modules, where we are, what we still need to do, and we can see, in each of those modules, there's still a couple of things to do. So it really takes you through a visual chart process to guide you to actually bring that through to make that close. Everything that we do around the close automation is to bring that close time quicker, enhance the time to close, and make sure we get that completed. From a communication point of view, so that whole collaboration, there's a few things. So when we started this process, you've noticed that the Copilot thing's already in there, but our Copilot is now enhanced across the rest of the application then as well. So bringing those in, we can actually draft with Copilot that communication or emails to, there's a variance or alert that needs to go out, so we can bring it in. So we can directly communicate across each of the tasks and keep that everyone aligned, everyone knows where we are throughout the close process as well. With this one, there's a couple of other things. So that close assistant, so really just driving, insights that will provide you details around the close as well. So with this process, surfacing that, unposted transactions, APA or GL, where are we? So you can see on the intelligence side there as well, on accounts receivable, view those unposted documents. I want to close AR. So guide you through the steps that's required to get through the next phase as well. Okay, so really taking that to the next level, managing the task, giving you prompts as to what's to do, what comes next, and how we can achieve that. When we look at that sub-ledger reconciliation, a few things coming out. So really looking at that automated way of showing any variances between your sub-ledger and your GL account, identifying what they are, giving you visibility across them, and then also give you that drill down insight. So you've got that ability to drill down, go into the reconciliation detail, and see what's happened. Something is in on the AR side, but it's not on the GL side yet. What happened there? Or something is posted in the GL directly that you haven't actually controlled and put through the AR ledger. So, the ability to automate that reconciliation process, give you visibility and then insights as to how we can actually resolve that going forward. From a variance perspective, there's also the variance analysis that can be done. So it makes the process a lot easier, looking at actuals versus budget, where those variances are, getting the detail in so you can actually have the details sooner, before the close as well. So that variance analysis really resolves a number of those options quite early. So it's all around proactive insights, making sure that we get the detail we need in a proactive way, so you can actually look at those before we actually get to close in that instance. All right, so a few things that's available there. It is something that we can activate on your side. There is obviously, once we start looking on the AI side, there are a couple of changes on operational point of view. So let us know if you're interested in looking at the close automation. We can activate that subscription for you as well. On the purchasing side, there's been a few enhancements. So looking at the first one, this one is still in early adopters. So if you are looking at the purchase level, line level approvals, on the release note itself, there is the ability to go in, activate that option, or subscribe to that option essentially, and prompt it or opt into to allow you to get into the line level. If you qualify for early adopter, then they will activate that for you. But ideally, the idea behind it is, having the option to set that line level approval on your workflow rules, and we can set that on the department, project, and location level as the initial ones that's been made available. So ideally, when a purchase document is created, that purchase invoice or purchase order, we've got it across multiple departments or multiple locations. We can then start that line level approval on those levels as well. Okay, so quite a nice enhancement. At this stage, still early adopter. We expect that to release in the next one, generally available. But if you do require that, definitely opt into that and see if we can get you on that process. One of the other interesting ones around the AI, again, with the AP automation, if you've got that active, the things coming through will now also bring through on the matching side. So essentially, when we process a purchase order, we've got a number of lines on the purchase order. The invoice comes in via the OCR piece, via AP automation. It can then, instead of the older way of doing things, looking up the purchase order, converting the purchase order in total, and then loading the invoice, it will now overwrite that, look at the line level, do the matching that it can match, and then also, show any exceptions. So the idea there is really exception management, looking at faster exception handling and how we can actually process those documents quicker. So it's a good enhancement, but there's a few things that we would need to look at when we do that. So I'll take you through one or two things on that side. Essentially, when we look on the purchasing, when we create or if it's active on your side, there would be things that you would need to change to allow that matching to start happening. So firstly, within your automated settings, there would be a new one there to override that header level matching with line level matching. So that's probably the only thing that needs to change once you've already have, your normal purchase order automation active. If we've got that available and you start processing documents, it will do exactly that. So in my example, I've raised a purchase order. So I'll just give you a quick idea of what that looked like. I've done one. My purchase order was raised and I had a number of lines on there essentially. So there's 3 lines in there, $1,020, $16.32. So those are the 3 lines that I've processed. That's my approved purchase order. When we process that invoice coming in, so in a matter of time, or interest of time, I didn't actually want to do everything online. I've already processed that document, but looking at insights from matching it automatically, the details have come through. So essentially, you still have that visibility side by side, but I can see on this line level of the invoice, there's actually 4 lines. So in my case, I know there should be a variance. What actually happened is on the line levels, you'll see the 3 lines I had in there. There's a 4th line added. But if I scroll to the right, you can see those exceptions as well. So there's a couple of things now managed there. You can see on that 2nd line, there's a price variance, or we can see what the actual value is. But they also provide, there's additional line. So on the invoice, we received a line that's not on the purchase order. We add that in, and then you can just do the coding for those as well. With that, you also have that exception summary. So it brings through on the lines that does have variances. Obviously, a new line's a new line. There's nothing to compare. But on this one, you can see the previous transaction. There was an order quantity of 1, price of 16. On the invoice, quantity is the same, but the price is different. And we can see quantity variance is nothing. The price variance was, $1 less, which is great. And it calculates what the percentage variance is as well. So visibility of what those exceptions are, and then, which ones you need to manage to get through and correct before we continue the process. Okay. So really reducing your payment risk at the end of the day by doing that faster exception handling as we bring that line level accuracy back into the automation piece. From a Sage Data Cloud, so obviously we've got our database that we've got there. What they've enhanced now is looking at Snowflake. So a lot of customers does have a Snowflake subscription, using that as a data warehouse, getting data across with either integration or API calls or methods around that. They have now enabled a Snowflake update automatically. So it's an automated delivery to Snowflake. So once you subscribe to that, it is a connection. There is a connection to Snowflake, and you decide what needs to go through. And depending on how regularly you need that, data volumes, what that looks like from an ongoing perspective. So that is available. If you are interested in it, we already had about 2 customers recently that reached out regarding that specific one. There are options to look at those, and we can share the cost as well around that. One of the ones that we spoke about quite a lot with Sage as well is just bringing through, streamline options for customer payments. How can we actually bring that in? Now, this one is not a released one yet. We are expecting that in R2 this year. So all things go well, that is quite exciting. So there's a customer payment portal on the horizon, which means, it gives the customers the ability to come in to self-serve as well. So they log in, they can see the customer invoices or all the invoices, have the ability to then raise a payment against those as well, which at this point, it sounds like can be done by Stripe and PayPal. So a couple of options that they can actually log in, process the payments, and from our side, it's that acceleration, time to cash. We need to get the money in, enable the customer to do that, and it also gives you that real-time visibility as to when cash actually coming in and when to expect things. So, quite exciting on our side, but giving that visibility back to the customer, getting them to self-serve and allow that payment to be made seamlessly. So we'll look out for that one in R2. Hopefully that will be there, but definitely one of the things to look forward to coming on that side. On the automation piece, they've also added a few additional things. So on the AP side, so we had a quick look at on the purchasing side where that matches to the approved purchase order lines. On the AP side, obviously there's nothing to match towards, and when the automation was already introduced, they basically bring through supply details, look at the supply codes, the document numbers, the dates, bringing in what it can on the line level, the amounts, the descriptions, the tax amount. So any of those things are coming through. Obviously the coding, the GL, dimensions and the tax were some of those fields that we had to populate. In this instance, that's now being streamlined, so it'll try and automate the predicting of the tax detail. So again, great enhancement, making again less touch points for the user to go and update, ensuring that the system drives that efficiency for you. Now, with all the automation pieces that we spoke about, it is all about learning from the past as well. So that machine learning capability, the more transactions that we process, the easier it will become for us to predict going forward. So that's one of the key aspects there. Yes, it's continuous improvements, but it is that machine learning that will come through and ultimately drive what will get predicted on these documents as well. When we look at our Sage fixed asset side of things, there's a few things that were sort of enhanced. So this is around, it's not on the SIG one, so it is around the fixed asset management, SFAM, Sage fixed asset management tool that's been released. Now, on this particular one, there's a new section around construction in progress, so work in progress. How do we handle that? What happens when we activate that? So really a key factor. So we'll talk about that one first. I think that's the important one. When we look at the fixed asset side of things, the first part would be within the fixed asset management on the configuration side. You can, if you are subscribed to that fixed asset management module, you can activate that construction in progress CIP asset management. So that's the sort of first step in there. Get that active. We can then start configuring what needs to happen. Once we've done that, ensure that we provide user rights to required users as well. And then on the asset class, that's the important one. For each class that we want to set up or have set up, the important part there, we need to identify, what that CIP account would be. So, there is the CIP gel account. We link that in, and we can then, whenever we start processing against that group or asset class, basically, we can then identify its CIP and we can take it to that instead of taking it to a fixed asset directly. Okay, so that's the sort of setup around it. When we start processing, the idea there, anything that we will start, so I'll start a quick new invoice just to give an idea of what that looks like. Whenever we enter the details on this side, I'll get a couple of details in. I'll take that to my CIP account. And the important part around that, Intacct is now smart enough to then identify, yes, I want to create a CIP asset. And instead of creating a normal asset as we used to, it will then create that construction progress so we can actually accumulate cost against it. If then subsequent cost or invoice comes in, you can always add that to existing CIP. So instead of creating a new one, I want to add that to existing one, and then you choose that existing CIP asset and attract cost or additional cost against that construction process. Okay, so that's the key enhancement there. If you still go back, your normal process will still be there. So if I look at my process and I change that to equipment, you'll see there, instead of the CIP, it creates to create fixed asset or create multiple fixed assets, depending on what you want to do. So yes, if it's not something, if we purchased a fully functional asset that we want to put into service, we do it against the normal asset account. If it is something that we're going to build on, there's equipment, we need to add cost to it, it's a project that we're busy with, we'll create that against the CIP account and we can attribute cost to that directly. Okay, so that's the sort of enhancement that we've got there. Quite a nice one, allowing that construction progress to flow through to the financials and creating things automatically as well. So do like the module, do like what it can do there as well. The other option, the second sort of point that was updated on this one is really looking at adjustments. So in this instance, you can actually adjust fixed assets cost directly from AP. So we can do a AP adjustment. We can update the cost of a fixed asset, and that's basically there to ensure your depreciation will sync up with the new values as well. Okay, so we physically change the asset cost, and that's done through an adjustment, debit or credit side. So again, the same sort of functionality. If we, within the AP module, raise any adjustments that's happened, we received a document, it's related to an asset, like we say, debit or credit, the same thing will happen there. So you can then, either on the CIP side or on the asset, we can apply that to a specific asset. So again, CIP, or if we do it on the equipment side, for instance, you can select the existing asset there as well. So giving you the ability to ensure that we link it to that particular asset I mentioned, attribute the cost so that going forward, that depreciation, that calculation, the management of the asset is maintained, and we update that accordingly. Now, this is two good ones already. So bringing CIPs, bringing cost updates, and then looking at the third option, they've also enhanced or brought in that fixed asset roll forward report. So it gives you a clear visibility around, the ability to track your additions, disposals, transfers, and any other things across periods as well. So making sure that you can actually balance that back to the GL, or easily balance that back. Now, for that, there are obviously some options from a rights perspective to activate, but essentially once it is active, you'll see that roll forward report in there, and you can utilize that to run and visualize what we want to see. Start end date, or at a particular point in time, some filters, some ranges that we can do. You do have the ability to then look at a specific asset state. So I just want to look at disposed assets, or that's in service or ready to review. So they're actually not in service, but I still want to look at that. We can do that in summary or detail level. I'll just do it for one location at this stage. If we run that report on I did select the detail side, we'll be able to see on each asset, or on the asset level, what that status is. So you can see there's a couple of mine that's in service, some's ready for review, total asset cost, and then start looking at what happened throughout the application or throughout the year. So at that point, you can see for that one that's not there, we don't have the cost, it's still in review, but there's my addition. And then on the others, I actually haven't posted depreciation. Oh, there's some posted depreciation. You can see the posted depreciation and the values as we go through. So depending on where we are in the process of that asset's life cycle, you do have that roll forward report available now to actually go through, show you all the detail around acquisition, disposal, and then depreciation throughout the life cycle of the asset. Okay. So a couple of exciting things around fixed assets as well. But we'll move on. The next one, just around balance sheet reconciliation. So exciting one. Haven't had that for a while. One that we sort of, I normally like that. I did have it in other Sage products. So quite a nice way to look at a balance sheet, any of those sort of clearing accounts or control accounts where we can actually match off debits and credits essentially. Part of that reconciliation process, look at what's outstanding, goods received, not invoice account, things like that. So easy way to then start matching transactions off, and then filter out everything that's already matched, just looking at those exceptions and what we still need to manage. Again, for this one, there would be a few things to activate. Firstly, on the GL side, you would need to enable that account reconciliation. And then also part of that would be, so in the configuration, there's that GL account reconciliation, and you'll also create a sequence for that. So essentially set up a sequence, enable the function, and then we can identify which accounts we want to reconcile. Okay, so that's the other important one. If we look at our GL accounts, you can then go in and decide, for that particular one, I've done one on this particular GL account. You can go in and then activate that process as well to say, yep, I want to enable that GL account reconciliation for this account. And I also want to assign a particular sequence. So it'll default through, but you do have the ability to then, change the sequence if need be per account as well. So that's the only settings really required. And then obviously user rights, making sure who needs access to that. When you have it available and you start running the function, there is that GL account reconciliation menu option that comes into play. Now, a few things coming out on that regard. Entity account. So what are we looking at? I'm looking at entity 600 in this case. I had that account 12605. That's my work in progress one. So custom date range, report ranges, you can select what data you want to look at. So you can minimize, I just want to look at the month, or because it's, I did the receipt in 1 month and the invoice in another month, those things will span multiple months. You decide what is the reporting period that you're looking at. Our match status. So you always have the ability to look at matched transactions as well. So not met and match. So I'll include that for now. If I view the results, I'll see everything, and you'll see, based on my matching, those two transactions were matched previously. So I'll take them out for now. If I view results now, it'll show me everything that's unmatched, and you can start that process. So in my case, I can select everything. That's okay because I know they match, or you can go through and select the ones that match. You'll see as we go through, it'll show you everything that's selected and the variance. At this stage, it needs to be a full match to allow the process to complete. So I'll select that, and we can actually do that matching as well. Okay, so it was successful. It shows me the transactions match. If I sort of refresh that, it only shows me the outstanding exceptions again. Okay, so easy way, start the process. We match the things that's required to be matched, get the report done, get the balance sheet updated, and we've got the details there. You'll see there's some other availability we can unmatch. So if there's things that you have matched, we don't need that to be matched. You can actually go and unmatch or unapply them as well, to start that process again, or correctly match them to the appropriate lines. So quite a nice little feature from a reconciliation point of view, making sure we can do those things on the Intacct side. If you want to take it out, obviously it still have the download options available, making sure we get the correct transactions. You've got the ability, you'll see there, because we use the new formats there, you can start filtering these, or sorting, filtering, looking at specific things in there as well. So looking at specific amounts, you can filter on these, trying to make things easier to get to the right transactions that we actually want to try and associate or match together. Alrighty. So that was one of my favorite ones. In any case, like to bring it in. You've got that ability, bring some auditability in there. We can see where we are, what's still outstanding for the month or on that account, and we can actually progress that through. When we look at our dynamic allocation piece, there's quite an exciting one that we brought in there as well. Now, looking at this, when we set up the dynamic allocations, that was the ultimate one. Essentially, you would always have to specify, on the target side, what account to use. Now we can actually change this where we say, I want to use the source account, which makes life easier, because especially if it is just, dimensional reallocation that you want to do, the account remains the same. You don't want to take it out of the normal account that we added in there. So we keep that account the same. We can do that allocation across dimensions. Just to give an idea of what that looks like. So on the GL side, if we start setting up with allocations, anything, if you've got the module active, I want to do a, expense allocation. I want to look at a couple of things. So maybe just to explain where we go through and how we do this. We'll look at the process. We say, I want to do it within one entity or across entity. My allocation focus was on a broker in this instance. And then we start looking, what's my source pool? So I'm going to look at all my other expenses, allocate 100% of this for the current month. And on my basis, what do I want to do? I want to dynamically allocate that to a statistical account that shows me what's my broker update or broker split up that I want to allocate across. So we've got that in there. We can actually process it across. Now, from a target perspective, just edit this to showcase where we can change that. On the target, where do we want to actually post that? Yes, we know where it goes, but instead of now specifying a normal account there, we can use that source account. So that was the big change. Bring that in on both sides, use the source account so we don't actually have to, when we process, separate out the posting, we just reallocate that. When things like that happen, or when they are processed, you can also go to the detail around that. And there's just one of the examples, on a reallocation. We're looking at other expense. It takes it out of one area and reallocates it that across different accounts, but within the same GL. So it basically takes it out of, I didn't have a broker associated on the last one there, but there's my associated dimensional breakdown based on a couple of things that we set up prior. So it gives you a bit more flexibility. Dynamic allocation is quite a nice module if you haven't used that before. Reach out, I can show you exactly how it works as well. But the idea there is looking at cost, which we're going to attribute across organizations, across dimensions, in an automated fashion, bringing that in. Okay. Now, the next one there is looking at our AI-powered import agent. So we've introduced the new import service a while ago already. The idea behind that is change the way we do things. Anyone that's importing to Intacct at this point, knows, you import the file, it goes into a processing mode, you get a result via email or an error message on screen, but you need to figure out what happened, what went wrong. In this instance, there's a couple of things. So we've got the ability to on screen try and map where we want things to go. So because we read the source file, we can actually take that to the destination. We know what we're trying to import and we can map the two. So it makes that process a lot easier. The source file essentially wouldn't have to be in the correct format because we've got that mapping. We say this field goes to that field in the expected one. So quite a nice way to bring that in. And then we've got other few things in there as well. So we've got the assistant. I'll quickly show you some of these options. Now, I've opened up the new import service, so that's what it looks like. They are enhancing the objects that would be available. So at this stage, we've got accounts payable purchase invoices. We've got a lot of master data, so across suppliers, customers, and then on the entity levels or dimensional level. On the GL side, accounts, statistical accounts, warehouses, and then GL journals as well. So I'll quickly show you the process, what happens when we get that in. And you saw there we had create and update in some instances. So you've got some visibility on how we want to create things, how we want to bring it through, and what we want to bring in. So in this case, I'm just going to bring through, an import file. I'll drop it in there. And there's a couple of things that will happen. So it will read the file, it will do the extraction, and then, we can start the process of validating the file firstly, or looking at, mapping. What is it? What's in the source file? Where do we want to take it in this destination? So we can see I've already mapped a couple of things in there. So there's my previously mapped 29 of them. I've got a few things that's unmapped, 3 of them. I've got some empty fields. Yeah, it's okay. We probably don't need something in there. But on unmatched, you can basically go in and say, where do we want to go and match these as well? Okay, so easy way to do that. Step through making sure that everything that we've got in is mapped. Once we've completed that process, the system will also go through and you'll see there, it will run a couple of steps in there. It'll calculate, there's the job running on journal entries. So it'll look at the object, it'll look at the file, try and compare any anomalies. What will happen when we bring this in? Is it gonna import correctly? Are there going to be some errors on there? Are there things that we need to fix? So it'll do that validation. You'll see, there was a quick update there that is completed. It checked it. It said, yep, we're happy with that. Let's proceed. So you can actually either revalidate or import or download the file again. So it'll create, 56 lines in this instance. So there's a few things that happened. We're happy with that. We can send that in, or, oh shucks, there's I had a description in that's not quite nice. You can use our sort of AI assistant and transpose or change things in the system as well. So in this instance, I'll use the assistant and try something. It's never a good idea on the fly, right? I want to, change the description to use full name instead of abbreviation. Let's see if I'm happy or lucky. So instead of just using November movements, it runs through it. It does. I still have a thingy on that one, but it'll look at the data. It'll try and simulate what should happen, try and change the data that we need to do, and see if we can update that. So I can still reject or accept that, but basically it'll show me the change. It'll take it that Nov movement and make November movement on that particular one. So we can actually go through, I had a blank line, so it didn't do all of them. I can also, accept that, do another one, awaiting input from the user, and we can decide what we need to do there as well. So easy way, start using the capabilities, the tools in there, the agent that's enabled on this side as well, and we'll bring that in, and you can see those updates on the November side has actually updated. Okay, so it gives you a bit more flexibility around the importing side and what we can do. We don't need to focus on what we do on the file before we import it. We've got a few options available from a mapping perspective, and then tools that runs across that. When you think about AI, we have spoken about a few that's already there. There are a number of others coming throughout the process as well. So throughout the year, we'll bring through the financial agent. We are expecting that in the next release. So a couple of nice things to look forward to. All of them will start off with our sort of Copilot help function. So that's our initial input in there. That's where it will be driven from. At this stage, you can do questions in natural language around the normal Copilot. Going forward, once the close automation is active, once the financial agent is active, those type of things you can then prompt. You can then look at the insights. You can then look at the trust. How did this originate? Where did Intacct get the information from? So a big focus on where that is going, but a lot more to come on those as well. The next little area is just around more on the operational side. So on most of these, I'll skip through quite quickly just to wrap up and get through all of the options there. On the project side, so from an operational point of view, when there's a number of projects you're running in your organization, there are now options to manage these in bulk, update them in bulk. And again, it's easier project closeout. We've closed out these. We know it's month end. We need to update them. We want to ensure that no one posts against incorrect projects anymore. So there's a few details that'll come through, and we can then go and update the projects. So to do that, back on the Intacct, we go into projects. We look at our projects, and with the sort of new enhanced view that they've enabled, you have the ability to then bulk select or multiple select some of the projects that's relevant. So ideally, when you start this, you can then say, you know what, we're actually done with this or multiple projects, and select the ones relevant. In that, you can see there's now this new update options available, and we can update the fields and say, you know what, yep, we're okay. Our project status, we're happy with these. We want to change them to completed. We want to close these out and save it. So a number of the fields, as you can see, available there. We can update the project manager. Someone left the organization, one of our project managers, or changes that needs to happen. Someone's on extended sick leave. We change the project manager. You can update that as well in bulk. So you can see there's a few things that we can manage in bulk, but the idea there is to optimize the way that we do things. You don't want to go in and do things one by one. If there's criteria around that we want to update, you can run it through this process as well. So you don't have to go, even if you do a single update to a particular project, across these fields, change the start or end date, change the status, change, contacts in there. Easy way just to maintain that, and then send through the update and apply that across the project group. Now, a few other enhancements around this one. On the customer side or customer billing perspective, so from an order entry perspective, new options to add customer billing groups. So instead of then running this by customer or by project, you can create a customer group or a billing group and say, you know what, for this billing group, I want to actually set up a schedule. I want to add a charge. I want to automate the billing around that. Whatever that process is, once we've set up this billing group, we can then start triggering these automated tasks to say, yep, send that update or add these charges to this particular billing group, and we can update those accordingly as well. So a few little nice options there from operational point of view, just to get that in. When you look at around the GST side, there's some inconsistencies across different modules that they've added this tax module in as well. So what they're doing now is just updating across certain areas where we had this, where we say, I want to streamline the tax reporting, easier reconciliation. Let's change the way order entry purchasing handles the tax. And that will also be split out the same way we have on AP and AR already. Okay, so the idea there is just bringing that consistency back into the application, making sure that, wherever you look, when you look at transactions, those things are consistent, and we can streamline the process as well. I think I have actually spoken about this one, so I have another slide on that. Interesting, but again, that automation piece, just around predicting the tax details, that it's there. It's obviously quite important. Bringing that in, ensuring that you've got that ability to continuously evolve the system, improve the AI, improve the efficiency and accuracy. The more it learns, the more it can predict what comes next. For people, especially around projects that use timesheets, the Sage Intelligent Time has been enhanced. They also enforce geofencing now. So, that enhances quite a few things. So when someone arrives on site, it, prompts them to do the clock in or clock out, so those type of things. It ensures that they're on site, that making sure they're at the correct site to actually enter time, enforcing some of those additions and ensuring that those are GPS tracked and verified. Okay, now when we look at timing, a few things around that. When we look at the time, there are on the setup side. Why don't I have that? Sorry, I might have done that in one of my other ones. I just want to quickly check if I've set up this in one of my other sessions. My time preferences, yep. So it's not active on that one. It must be the other one. Goodness. There's a few options on the time side that we've set up already. But if we activate the Sage Intelligent Time, there's a number of things that you can do on the preference side, and one of them is that geofencing. But again, looking at time gathering, what do we have there from operational point of view? What do we want to control? What's my normal working day, 8 to 5, 9 to 5? We can actually, extend what that looks like, or the time that they need to track. Over time, how's that managed? Notifications, what gets sent out to them? From a time tracking perspective, if there's defaults, what does that layout look like? So there's been some enhancements on those as well, and then security and some other advanced options around these. So quite a few things that they've done around time sheeting with the geofencing. And then the other thing is really looking at these time clocks as well. So, where that becomes apparent, I arrive on site, it prompts me, hey, you've arrived, do you want to clock in? So that's always a big one. I can resume any of the ones that I've done before, or for a particular project, I'm on this project and I'm going to be doing this task. I want to start my clock. So you don't have to actually afterwards go and, tell the system how many hours you worked on this task. We've done this. We can just clock out when we finished. You can do, breaks in between, start a break, end a break, and then we clock out. So there's a new time entry that came in as well. Okay, so making timesheet a lot easier. So yes, this is on Intacct, but there is the mobile interface as well. There is the mobile app that we can integrate there, and it makes that process a lot easier. Obviously, when they're on site, just use the mobile and do the timesheets as required. Two last ones, just as a mention there, from a construction point of view, quite a nice enhancement there as well, where they added the work order dimension. So, it brings through the ability to track work orders, as part of the construction process or project. We can then bring in any work order data from an integrational point of view, and there's, richer data from operational context as well. So, construction, one of the leading industries again on the Intacct side. A lot of enhancements coming out on that space. There's just a quick one around the work order. It is a new dimension, so extending the dimension capabilities around Intacct as well. but it is just on the construction point of view at this stage. And then the last one, again, on construction. So from a retainage point of view, any retainage, there's a bit more flexibility now around the way that they manage that. If there's retainage held on a subcontractor, for instance, or on the billing to a customer, any of those retainage that we've done or held, there's now a more flexible way to actually release that and ensure it's bulk processing, getting all of that out, making sure, yep, the project's complete, the contract's done. We want to release the last retainage to the subcontractor and to the customer for payment as well. Okay.